of us who have had to homeschool with toddlers in the mix, one of the most difficult things is getting those read alouds done. So in this video, I'm going to share a few tips with you. Hi everyone, I'm Michelle and this is A Common Life. I'm a homeschooling mom of 5 kids ages 4 through 12. We had all of our kids in 8 years, so basically all of our kids were young at the same time. So whenever I was homeschooling my older children, my younger kids were always there and they were getting into mischief and making homeschool very difficult, if I'm going to be honest with you. And so one of the hardest things that I have found over the years was getting those read alouds done with our toddlers in the mix. Because a lot of the time we want our toddlers, especially 3 and 4-year-olds who are like almost at that preschool age or at that preschool age, we want them to be involved in the reading story time. We want them to be there with us. But many of them are just wiggly and active and noisy and just, they make it so difficult. They're just so distracting. And I've gotten a lot of questions on how we've made it work in our home. So I'm going to share those tips with you today. I think one of the most obvious tips, if you want to get those read alouds done with your older children and you have little kids like 3 and under, read during their nap time. If they are still napping, just do reading during their nap time. Another option would be to maybe give them a snack while you're reading, because if they are one of those like jabbery kids, because if you have one of those children who just talks all the time or jabbers all the time, it makes it difficult because they're really cute and they're really distracting and they'll distract their older siblings, or maybe they'll even distract you. And so if you give them a snack, it'll keep them quiet at least for a little while and you can get some of that reading done. One of the best things that you can do is give your toddler or preschooler something to do. Give them a puzzle, Legos, tangrams, Play-Doh, just crayons and a piece of paper. Give them something to do to keep them busy. That way they're kind of keeping their hands and their body busy, but they are listening. And also they'll be less distracting for their siblings. It's very hard to read when the toddler is just all over the place and knocking things down and making messes and maybe spilling things. It's difficult. I get it. I've been there. My kids were all little at the same time. They were all, babies one after another. And so we went through this several times over, a decade. And so it was very difficult many times to figure out how to read aloud. But I've got a few more tips for you. So the next tip is to pile up everybody in your bed and snuggle up and read together. That doesn't work for everyone and that isn't going to work for every kid, but it does work for some of them. So if you have kids that just love to kind of snuggle up and read in bed with you, do that. If there are some kids who don't want to do that, then set up some things on the floor for them to do. Maybe just crayons and paper, little cars to play with, or dolls or something. And they can kind of be on the floor and you can be snuggled up in the bed and they can still be listening to the story as you read it aloud. Even for my older children, when we are doing read alouds at our homeschool table, I will give them a coloring page to color. Another thing that we have done is I've given them toothpicks, and they will just take those toothpicks and just make little designs and creations with them. And that honestly would keep them occupied for a large portion of the time that I was reading out loud. They liked having just anything little that they can play with and keep them busy. If you have a busy child, and I'm not just talking about toddlers and preschoolers, if you have a child who just has a lot of energy, giving them little things like that to do really helps occupy that time for them, and they'll be listening while you're reading, but they'll be able to keep busy at the same time. If you want to get read alouds done, but you are not concerned as to whether or not your toddler is a part of it, there are lots of other options, obviously. You can keep them busy doing anything from watching a little learning show to playing. Maybe if you read outside, they can be just playing on the playground or jumping on the trampoline or whatever they like to do. There are lots of ways to just kind of keep them distracted. But if you do want them to be involved with you, sometimes the best thing to do is pull them on your lap with the book right in front of you. That way they're just really a part of it and they feel close to you and they feel like they're a part of the whole experience. Because a lot of times when we have younger children, we end up kind of like pushing them to the side while we're trying to work with the older kids, and that can be hard. It's really important for them to get that cuddle time with their parents. And so for some kids, not all kids, that will work to just kind of plop them on your lap and let them read along with you. I think the most important thing is just not to make that child feel like they are a nuisance or an annoyance or in the way. It is important to give them something to do, give them something that makes them feel like they are a part of it, or just separate them completely and give them their own special thing. If you are constantly saying, go away, shh, be quiet, it's miserable. It's miserable for you. It's miserable for the other kids. It's miserable for the little one. It's just not fun. So if you can kind of do these little tips, it's nothing big. It's nothing that you can't do. We all have this stuff within our home. We all have these resources, and yeah, hopefully it'll make it just a little bit better. But I'm going to tell you, Some toddlers are just really, really busy, and even if you try to keep them occupied and even if you give them multiple things to bounce, from one thing to another, they're probably still going to be distracting. So in that case, if you really do have a child who is that distracting, it may be best some of the time, but not always, but some of the time, to just kind of give them like a little TV show to watch or something like that, or maybe do it during their quiet time. But I like personally for us to do our read alouds all together. So a lot of the time I would just deal with it, let my son, because I had 3 little ones, like 3 little boys all in a row. So let my little boys just be noisy, and we just kind of tried to ignore them as best we can, but still included them as we were able to do so. I hope that was helpful. I don't think that there's any perfect way to do this. I don't think there's any perfect way to read aloud with little kids. It's very easy if you're doing like a storybook with pictures, but when you're talking about reading aloud a chapter book, it's just hard for little kids. They can't really keep their attention for that long, and they need to be busy, and they need to be noisy. So I hope maybe this helped a little bit. I'm not sure if it did, but that's what I can share from my experience. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you would like to see more videos in the future, please subscribe to my channel by clicking the red button down below. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.